Hi, my name is Christy Miscati. In this video, we're going to be discussing telephone encounters. Let's get started. The first thing I need to do is search for my patient. In the top left-hand corner, I'm going to use my little search engine to bring me to my patient lookup window. I have a few different ways I can search for my patient. I have my primary search where I can enter in their first and last name, or my secondary search to use a date of birth. I'm going to enter in my test patient's first and last name, and then I'm going to select my patient. This is going to take me to my patient hub. Down here at the bottom where I have some different quick links, I'm going to click on the one that says New Telephone Encounter towards the bottom right-hand side. This is going to bring me to my new telephone encounter window. At the very top, you're seeing what is called your patient dashboard. Now, if you do not see this, that's because these arrows in the very top right-hand corner have been collapsed. Now, my arrows are red, meaning I am showing my patient dashboard as well as my right chart panel over here on this right-hand side. If you do not see these, you want to simply click on the arrow. The arrow on the left-hand side is going to expand or collapse that patient dashboard, and then you can simply click it again to bring it back. The arrow on the right-hand side is going to expand or collapse that right chart panel. And this functions the same way. I can click on it to bring that right chart panel back. Your right chart panel is made up of some different tabs. The first one being your overview tab, and it's just simply an overview of your patient's chart. You can click on each tab and it will then change to show you what it consists of. For example, this is your encounters tab. It's going to show you all the encounters for your patient. You also have your DRTLA tab where you can view any labs, diagnostic imaging, referrals, etc. While viewing your referrals, you can see some brief information here, such as what specialty they were referred to, the reason, and the status of that referral. You can also click directly on it to take you directly into the referral window itself, where you can edit or make any changes as needed. I'm going to click my OK button down here at the bottom center to take me back to my telephone encounter window. At the top left-hand side of my actual telephone encounter, I can see my patient's name that auto-populated for me, as well as the answered by field that is going to auto-populate your name as you are the one who initiated the telephone encounter. The next field that you have is your caller. This is whomever is calling, so I can put in the patient. And then you have the option for reason. I can free text in this box, or I can use this drop down arrow and select something that is already listed. For this example, I'm going to say my patient is calling about lab results. If this was something high priority, I can check this box underneath here, and this is going to turn my T jelly bean red, as well as have an exclamation point next to this particular telephone encounter. For training purposes, I am going to go ahead and mark this as high priority. In the center of the screen, you can see the date and time that your telephone encounter was initiated, whom it's assigned to. It's always going to default have your name listed here as you were the one who is initiating the telephone encounter, but then you'll change it to whoever that appropriate person is. You have the provider listed here. This is very important to have the appropriate provider selected, especially when you're dealing with ordering medications, labs, imaging, or something of that sort. Underneath here, you have your perform eligibility check. This comes into play whenever you're doing anything with medications. You want to make sure that you are performing that RX eligibility. You have your facility in the top right-hand corner, your patient's pharmacy. If your patient has more than one pharmacy on file, you can hit the drop-down arrow and it's going to show both of those listed here. If you need to change the pharmacy, you can simply click on it and it's going to automatically update it for you for this particular telephone encounter. If you needed to add a new pharmacy in for your patient, you can go ahead and do so by clicking on the ellipses. It's going to bring up your pharmacy lookup window, and then you can begin searching and selecting your correct pharmacy. The last option at the top that you have is your status. It's very important that your telephone encounter is left in the open status so that you can send it to other users within your group. Once the telephone encounter has been completed in full and there's nothing else that needs to be done, that's when the status then changed to addressed. The blue bar that runs in the center of the screen has some different tabs listed here. The first one is your message. This is where you're going to enter in the message as to what your patient is calling about. Now, I know that I want to send my telephone encounter to Dr. Donnie. Instead of using my assign to field at the top center of the screen, I can actually type the at symbol. It's going to show up a list of different users within my system, and then I can begin searching for the appropriate one. Once I click on that user's name, notice the assign to field is automatically going to change for me. Now I can go ahead and begin typing my message. Once I have my message listed here, if there's nothing else that I need to do at this time, I can go ahead and click on my OK button down at the bottom right hand corner, and this is going to send this telephone encounter to whomever the assigned to is. I'm going to just click the X in the top right hand corner to get me out of my patient hub. Now, our telephone counters live in what is called your T jelly bean located up here in the top right hand corner. I'm going to now play the role as Dr. Donnie. So I'm going to change my assign to Dr. Donnie's name because I want to take a peek at his telephone encounters. Now I am viewing Dr. Donnie's telephone encounters. I can see that there are two encounters listed here. Your T Jelly Bean is made up of not only telephone encounters, but web encounters as well, meaning that your patient has sent a message from the patient portal. On the far left-hand side, I can easily tell which one is which. This top one here has a telephone icon, where your bottom one has a web icon representing the web encounter. I'm going to go ahead and select my patient's name, and this is going to take me into that telephone encounter window. So I am now playing the role of Dr. Donnie. I can see the message that was listed here, and now I want to go ahead and take action. So I call my patient, I discuss the lab results. Everything is good. I want to go ahead and document that. Down here at the very bottom where I have action taken, this is where I'm going to document that information. I'm going to click on this button, action taken, and then I'm going to document my information here. I called my patient, discussed my lab results. My patient has voiced understanding. I can now click my OK button, and this has been added into my telephone encounter window. If I'm completely finished and there is nothing else that I need to do, I can go ahead and click my addressed button up here in the top right hand corner. It's going to ask me if I would like to address and close my telephone encounter. I'm going to say yes and go ahead and click this address and close button. And now I have just gotten rid of that telephone encounter. Let's look at the example of creating a telephone encounter by refilling a medication. I'm going to search for my patient up here in the top left-hand corner. I'm going to enter in my patient's first and last name. I'm going to select my patient's name, and this is going to take me to my patient hub. From here, I'm going to click on my new telephone encounter button, and it's going to take me directly into my telephone encounter window. I'm going to enter in my caller in the top left-hand corner, my reason, and mark this as high priority if need be. In the center of this window, I have the date and time, the assigned to, which is automatically going to have my name listed here as I'm the one who initiated the telephone encounter. The provider, now this is very important that you have the appropriate provider selected, as we are going to be refilling a medication, and whomever's name is listed right here, when that medication gets sent to the pharmacy, that's the provider who will be associated. Now, I know this has to do with the medication, so I want to make sure that I perform my eligibility check for my patient. I have my facility listed in the top right-hand corner, as well as my patient's pharmacy on file. If I need to change this to a different pharmacy, I'm going to click my drop-down arrow and see if there's any other ones associated with my patient's chart. In this instance, I'm going to switch it to Walgreens. Or if I needed to create a new pharmacy for my patient, I would click on my ellipses. This would take me to my pharmacy lookup window where I could then select a new pharmacy. I have my blue bar that runs across the center of my screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is enter in my message. Now, I know I'm going to send this to Dr. Donnie. So instead of putting Dr. Donnie's name here in this assigned to field, I'm going to actually just type in the @ symbol, and it's going to show me a list of all the users in my group. I can start typing Dr. Donnie's name, and it's going to populate it here for me. Now, once I click on his name, notice my assigned to field automatically updates. Now I can go ahead and enter in my message. I've listed that my patient needs a refill on her birth control. Looking at this blue bar in the center of the screen, I can go ahead and click directly on my RX tab, and this is going to show me all the medications my patient is currently on, or I have the option to add a new medication. On the far left-hand side, you have your RX eligibility. So realistically, we would be checking this for our patient. Due to using a test patient, this is not going to go through. Our next tab that we have is the current RX. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and see a list of all the medications my patient is currently on. I want to refill this ortho tricycline low. On the far left-hand side, you have some different buttons. When you hover to discover, it's going to let you know what each button represents. Your C to continue, your R to refill exactly as it is written now, your 30 to refill for 30 days, 90 to refill for 90 days. This S will stop the medication. And then you have this orange H that will show you the history of the medication. So I'm going to just go ahead and click on my medication, and it's going to drop it down here under the selected medicines. I'm going to click my R button to refill it exactly as it is already written. Once I click my OK button at the bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to see my medication listed here. Now, if your patient has any drug interactions, notice this pop-up window automatically opened for me. I can take a peek at any interactions listed here and then click my OK button down at the bottom right-hand corner. I'll see my medication listed right here. If I needed to make any changes, I can still click on it from right here and then work my screen left to right, making any changes as needed. In this instance, there's nothing that I need to change. I have my appropriate strength listed, my take, my frequency. I'm going to go ahead and add in 3 refills. So I am satisfied with everything that's listed. I'm going to just simply click my OK button at the bottom right-hand corner. I can go ahead and click my OK listed here at the bottom right, and this is going to go over to Dr. Donnie's tea jelly bean. I'm going to hit the X in the top right to close me out of my patient hub, and I'm going to navigate over to my tea jelly bean. I'm already viewing Dr. Donnie, but notice that my telephone encounter is not listed here. I'm just going to use my refresh button, and I'm going to research for Dr. Donnie's name so that my system automatically updates. I can now see that there are 2 encounters listed here for Dr. Donnie. On the far left-hand side, I can tell that this one is a telephone encounter, whereas this one underneath is a web encounter based upon the icon. I'm going to go ahead and select my patient's name. I can see the message that was listed here. When I jump over to my RX tab, I can see the medication that's listed. So because I'm playing the role of Dr. Donnie right now, I'm good with this medication. There's nothing else that I want to edit or do. So I'm going to go ahead and click my Send RX button at the bottom right-hand corner. This is going to take me to what is called my Common Send window. Now, because this is a test database, I do not have the option to send this prescription for my patient. Realistically, I would see my prescription listed right here. I could go in and make any changes if needed. If not, I could go ahead and just hit my send button right here. You'll notice that I have this little blurb down here at the bottom letting me know that only medications that have, or excuse me, only items that have this green check mark will be sent through here. So we'll pretend everything is good. I hit my send button, and then it's going to take me back to this original telephone encounter window. I'm going to click on my messages from here. And then down at the bottom, I want a document under my action taken. I'm going to do so by clicking Action Taken. And then on this right-hand side, I'm going to document my information. I can say that my prescription was sent and I've already notified my patient of this. Once I click the OK at the bottom center, it's going to enter that information for me here. I'm completely finished and there's nothing else that I need to do, so I can go ahead and click on my Addressed button next to my status and mark that I want to address and close this telephone encounter. If I would need to order a medication for my patient, a brand new one, or order any labs or diagnostic imaging, I can do so from my telephone encounter. In the top left-hand corner, I'm going to search for my patient. This is going to bring up my patient lookup window. I'm going to enter in my patient's first and last name, and then I can select my patient's name from here. This is going to take me to my patient hub. Down here at the bottom where I have some different quick links, I'm going to click on this new telephone encounter. This is going to bring up my telephone encounter window. At the very top, I have my patient dashboard. Now, if you do not see this, that's because your dashboard is hidden. In the top right-hand corner, I can click on this arrow on the left-hand side, and this is going to hide or show my dashboard. The same thing applies for the arrow on the right-hand side. This is going to hide or show my right chart panel. Your right chart panel is made up of some different tabs listed here. The first one being your Overview tab, which is going to show you an overview of your patient's chart. You have your Encounters tab as well as your DRTLA. Your DRTLA tab is made up of different items such as labs, diagnostic imaging, referrals, etc. Notice your referrals that are listed here. You can see the specialty, the reason of the referral, as well as the status. I can always click directly on that referral button to open up my actual referral window where I can edit, make any changes, or just simply view it. Once I click my OK button down at the bottom center, it's going to take me back to my telephone encounter window. In the top left-hand corner, I have my patient's name listed here. I have my caller, so I can list whoever is calling, as well as my reason field. Now, I can free text in this reason field, or I can use this drop-down arrow to select an option listed here. So my patient is calling about dysuria. I'm going to go ahead and list that here. And we also got some pelvic pain going on. If this was high priority, I could go ahead and check this box, and it's going to make this particular telephone encounter red in the assigned to person's T jelly bean. You have your date and time listed here. The assigned to is automatically going to populate your name as you're the one who is initiating the telephone encounter. The provider, this is very important that you have the appropriate provider in this spot. Whomever is listed in this provider field, whenever you go to send any medications or labs, imaging, anything of that sort, this is the provider whose name will be attached to the order. You have your perform eligibility check, so this applies whenever we're sending any medications. You have your facility in the top right-hand corner, as well as your patient's pharmacy. If you needed to change the pharmacy, you can always use this drop-down arrow to see if the patient has any other pharmacies on file, and you can simply click on it and it will update it for you. Or if you need to create a completely new pharmacy for this, you can simply click on the ellipses to add a new pharmacy in for your patient. Your status, now very important that the status is listed as open until you are completely finished with this telephone encounter. Once you're completely finished, there's nothing else left to do. That's when the address button comes into play. You have this blue bar that runs across the center of the screen. The first tab that you have is your messages. This is where you're going to enter in the message that your patient is calling about. Now, instead of changing the assigned to field up here in the top center of my screen, I can simply hit my at button and then start searching for that user's name. Once I click on the appropriate user's name, notice it automatically updates my assigned to field. Then I can begin typing in my message. Now, I know that I want to add some labs in for my patient. I also want to maybe order some diagnostic imaging, maybe a medication. So I'm going to go ahead and do that from this window. All the way on the right hand side, I have a tab that is called Virtual Visit. I can click directly on this Virtual Visit tab, and this is going to show me a progress note. If I scroll down on this window at the very top, I can see my information on my telephone encounter. And then when I keep scrolling down, notice this looks identical to a progress note. Now, this window is a little bit small in my opinion, so a little trick that you can do. Instead of going directly in from this window, I can always click on this button that says Progress Note, and it's just going to take me to a bigger view. Now, my patient hub is still sitting on top of this window, so I'm just going to click the X in the top right, and now I'm in more of a progress note view. I can still see my brief information about my telephone encounter right here, but when I scroll down, I have that bigger view. This is a complete preference if you would like to do it from right here, or in the top right hand corner, I can always click on telephone encounter to take me back to my normal telephone encounter view in that virtual visit tab. For training purposes, just to see a bigger window, I'm going to go ahead and just do this from this progress note view right here. The first thing that I want to do is I want to add an assessment in for my patient. I'm going to scroll down on my progress note and I'm going to click on assessment. Now I'm searching for my assessment using what is called the classic search. On the far left hand side, you're going to see your assessment tree. Keep in mind, mine does look different than yours as I am using a fake database right now. I'm going to go ahead and search for my assessment listed here. So the first example that I'm going to do is dysuria. I'm going to select my assessment and it's going to drop it down here underneath selected assessments. Now I searched for my assessment by simply typing in the word. I also had the option I could have typed in the code. If I have any assessments added into my favorites, I could use this star icon to access those. I can also use my previous diagnose button to see anything I've used previously for my patient, or my PL to see anything that's in my patient's problem list. So multiple ways I can add my assessment in. I'm going to go ahead and add in one more assessment. For this one, I'm going to type in the actual assessment code, and then I'm going to select it from here. Same thing applies. It's going to drop it down here under my selected assessments. I'm now ready to navigate over to my treatment window. So instead of closing out of this window and accessing it from my progress note view, I'm going to use these shortcuts up at the top. I can hover over my icon to let me know which one it is. So this is my treatment. I'm going to go ahead and select it. In the top left-hand corner, I have the option to make some different selections. The first one I'm going to click on is my RX. This is where I can go and add in a new prescription for my patient. Very important that I have the appropriate assessment selected. So on the far left-hand side, I want to make sure that there's a check mark next to the assessment I want to link my medication to. I'm going to start my patient on Cipro. So in this medication search window box, I'm going to search for Cipro and then click on the appropriate one. It's going to bring up some different strengths here for me, so I want to make sure that I choose the appropriate one. On the far left-hand side, you have a D for your dosage calculator. You have a pencil icon to go in and edit the medication. And then you have a star if this medication was listed in your favorites. Now, I have a question mark listed here because I am using a test patient in a fake database. Realistically, this is going to be the formulary. I'm going to go ahead and click on my pencil icon because I always want to edit my medication first to make any changes as needed. I always want to work my screen left to right, so I already have my appropriate string selected. I'm okay with my take and route and frequency and all this information that's listed. So the only thing that I want to do is I want to put 0 refills on here. I can take a peek again one more time down here to see how everything is listed, and then go ahead and click this OK button at the bottom right hand corner. Now, if this is a medication that I'm prescribing frequently, maybe I want to add it into my favorites. Notice here I have a blue button that says Add to Favorites. I'm going to go ahead and click this button because I do prescribe Cipro frequently. I have one more chance that I can just double check and make sure I have everything listed as wanted. I have my NDC code already associated, so there's nothing else I need to do. I'm going to just click on my OK button at the bottom right. I'm going to select OK down here at the bottom right. And now it's going to be listed down here at the bottom under selected medicines. So now that I've added this into my favorites, I'm just going to show you what that's going to look like moving forward. I'm going to select Cipro again. I have the option over here where I have my favorites. I can always click on my star and it's going to show me that medication how I already have it listed, and I can quickly order it from here. Depending on your settings, you could view this a couple of different ways. This filter icon is going to show you all of the different filters that you can choose. So down at the bottom, I have the option to show my standard, my favorites, or I can see all of them. So just depending on what that preference is. If I have all selected, like I just changed listed here, now not only am I viewing my favorites, but I'm viewing all of Cipro as well. Your favorites is just going to jump to the very top of that window. So now that I have my medication added, I can go ahead and click my OK button down at the bottom right-hand corner. If there's any drug interactions, I'm going to get that pop-up window listed here, and I can just simply click my OK button at the bottom right to take me back to that treatment screen. Now, if I wanted to go ahead and send this medication, I can click on my Send RX button down here at the bottom left-hand corner. Now, because I am in a test database, I do not have the authority to go ahead and send this medication. Realistically, you would see your medication name listed here. You could go in and make any changes as needed. As long as you have a green check mark next to it, you are good to go to hit your Send button in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm going to hit the X on this window and it's going to take me back to my treatment window. There's a couple other things I do want to order for my patient. So my patient is also complaining of pelvic pain. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a lab and some diagnostic imaging. I'm going to click on my labs tab up here in the top left-hand corner. On the far left-hand side, I want to make sure that I have the appropriate assessment selected. It's going to default choose the very first one in my list, but I don't want this one, so I'm going to uncheck it and then check the appropriate one. In the center of my screen, this is where I can search for my order. So I'm going to do a CBC, and it's going to bring up all of my different CBCs listed here. If I had something in my favorites, I can always use this star icon. This is always going to represent a favorite. So this is the appropriate CBC that I want. I'm going to select it, and it's going to add it to my today's orders. I'm also going to order a diagnostic imaging for my patient. So instead of closing out of this window, I'm going to use a little shortcut in the top left-hand corner to simply click on this DI tab. Notice my window looks the exact same. It kept the check mark next to my appropriate assessment for me, but I still want to just double check anyways that I have the right one. In the center of the window, I'm going to go ahead and enter in my order. So I'm going to do a pelvic ultrasound. Notice that this one is in my favorites. I know that because there's a yellow star next to it. So I could have always just clicked on that star icon to see anything in my favorites as well. Once I click it, it's going to add it over here to my today's orders. I can click my close button at the bottom right-hand corner, and it's going to take me back to my treatment window. Underneath each assessment, I can see the orders that are associated with it. So here's my CBC and my ultrasound. I'm ready to go ahead and send these over, so I'm going to click on my Send button here. This is going to take me to my Common Send window. Now, we can see more of this window because we are not dealing with the medication. So I want to go ahead and review this medication a little bit in detail. At the top, you have your medication listed here. You have your labs. I can see any labs that are listed here. And notice on this left-hand side, I have a mode. Now, realistically, I would be wanting to transmit this over. Now, again, I am in a test database, so I do not have the access to actually hit my transmit, but we'll pretend that it's going to go through successfully. I also have my diagnostic imaging where I can choose the appropriate mode here if I wanted to print an order out or not. You can see the list of your labs listed here, the company that it would be configured for. So, again, realistically, this would be the appropriate company that you're sending it to. And then on the far right hand side, you would realistically have a green check mark. Now, I have an exclamation point because, again, this is a test database and I am not really able to send this prescription over or my labs over or anything else in this window. What we're always looking for is this green check mark, meaning that this item is good to go and we can simply hit the send button in the bottom right hand corner. So we'll pretend that everything is good. I'm going to hit my send button and it's going to transmit those orders over for me. I can now close out of my treatment window and I'm going to see all my orders populate here on my progress note. There's nothing else that I need to do here, so I'm going to click on that telephone encounter in the top right hand corner and it's going to take me back to this telephone encounter window. I can see down here at the bottom under action taken that it went ahead and automatically documented for me that I've ordered a lab as well as that ultrasound. If I need to add any additional documentation, I can click on my action taken button and do so. If there's nothing else that needs to be done, I can go ahead and mark my status as addressed, click my address and close button, and it's going to take me out of my telephone encounter window. That concludes our video. Thank you for joining.